Greetings everybody, I'm Wilford Brimley, and I've got diabetes. I'm so sorry folks, diabetes is a terrible joke. I love Wilford Brimley, he is a gem. I'm gonna hang my head in shame for just a second. Anyway, good afternoon everybody. How was the day finding you so far? Here I am, back at my apartment. I feel a little more comfortable here, talking to the camera, so I've decided that I'm going to do a different segment today, get in touch with my nerdy side. I think I'm going to call it the Nerd Corner. That's got a nice ring to it. And for these segments, I think I'm going to discuss, literature, whether it be, comic books, which I have here today, manga. Yes, comics and manga are literature. Fight me. But I do like other books too. We will talk movies, video games, and all kinds of nerd stuff. I like all of it. Nerd Corner might be one of those interesting phrases, considering that I am not in a corner. I am at my kitchen table, as it is the only smooth, flat surface that is, up to my shoulders, that I can properly sit and enjoy my protein shake. As one Eddie Hall would say, I'm very dehydrated. Not really. I am thoroughly hydrated. Anyway, guys, on today's Nerd Corner, we are going to talk about one of my favorite DC stories of all time. Don't hate me in the comments, but I am a DC guy. Not that I do not have excessive love for all things Marvel. I am not a picky person. I love DC, I love Marvel, I like Dark Horse. If it's a good story, I am in it to win it. I will read until the story is done. I get lost in these books, and I have read this specific one, who is by the legendary Rags Morales and Brad Meltzer. My favorite DC author of all time is Jeff Johns, but Rags and Brad are two very accomplished authors in their own right. So with that being said, I'm going to talk to you guys and refer to you this book here called Identity Crisis. When I first read this book, yes, it is the Justice League. It is almost the entire roster of the Justice League. When I read this book for the first time many years ago, and as you can see, mine is still in pretty pristine condition. Okay, it's off. We're safe. Anyway, getting sidetracked. When I first read this book in its entirety, I was in awe, shock and awe of the story, the happenings in the story, and the way that it ended. It is a very phenomenal read. It's mostly centered around a character that not many people who don't read comics isn't familiar with, and that's Ralph Dibny, who is the Elongated Man. For most people, they have this idea that Ralph Dibny is just this goofy guy who is a PI who hates the Flash and blah 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 because of the CW show The Flash, which is very enjoyable in my opinion. I have nothing against it. But the Ralph Dibny that I know takes his job of crime fighting very, very seriously. And the only thing he loves more than that is his wife, Sue, who in this story is, well, we're not going to say. That would be a censored thing. It is very, very heart-wrenching, but bad things happen. And certain members of the Justice League, aka Oliver Queen, Green Arrow, and a few others, Zatanna, they wipe the mind of everybody who was involved in that situation. Fast forward a few years later, and we are at Sue's funeral. She has been murdered. I'm not going to tell you by who. If you want to find out, you have to go read it. But it's somebody very near and dear to the Dibnys, and also the Atom. Anyway, so it focuses on this group of heroes, which is pretty much led by Green Arrow, and they just go ballistic and go trying to find Sue's killer. And of course they think it's the same guy who, you know, done this past deed in which they wiped everybody's mind of. And needless to say, it wasn't that person. It was somebody, like I said, near and dear. It wasn't a supervillain that done it. There's a lot of people pass away in this book, and it was insane to find out. They hide things from Superman and Batman. Actually, they have Zatanna wipe Batman's mind because he was completely opposed to the whole mind wipe situation. Yeah, I don't even know what else to say about it, guys. All I can say is it is a very, very good read. It is a very emotional story. And everybody was like, how can you get that from a comic? I say to you that these gentlemen right here have made pretty much a novel in such a short span. It is my favorite. That's all I can say. It is one of my favorite DC books of all time. It is definitely in my top 3. The other two would have to be Final Crisis, because Darkseid is my all-time favorite villain. I mean, how do you get more, you know, doom and gloom than a guy named Darkseid who rules over a planet named Apokolips, who's nigh unstoppable? In that story, we see his true form, like everything that you've ever seen in the animated version, or, you know, comics in general leading up to that point, is just extensions of Darkseid's true self. And with those extensions, he causes chaos and destruction on massive levels. He is what one of my favorite YouTubers, Comics Explained, I am part of the Rob Corps. That is what Rob would classify as a beyond Omega level person. I'm not going to say he's a mutant, because he's not. He is classified as a new god. He is not of our universe, or Earth 2 universe, or at this point in time, Prime universe. It's very convoluted, folks. You have to read it to have that understanding of it. But highly recommend this read. It is very heart-wrenching. That's a lot of people who know me don't think that I'm a very, emotional guy. Oh, he doesn't have feelings, he doesn't have emotions. Well, just sneak up on me reading a good story like this one. It brought tears to my eyes, and it's not much else I can say about it, guys. Pick it up, read it, support your local comic book shop. Order it online. It's not expensive. It's an old book. This is the entire series in a big graphic novel. I paid $20 for this, which is well worth it. You can probably find it online cheaper than that. I'm not going to say how much. I'm not going to go out of my way to look. If you're a collector like me, or you enjoy comics as much as I do, you would go out and buy it brand new, read it, and then immediately put it away for safekeeping, so you can read it again later. I have read this story about a dozen times, and it never gets old. And I think that says something about a story if you can just keep going back to it and reading it over and over and over again. Back to the other stories, as far as DC goes, Final Crisis was one of my top 3, and gosh, what is the other? I don't know. As far as DC is concerned, I'm a huge fan of Flash. He is probably my favorite good guy, superhero in the DC universe. Fastest man alive. Barry is my favorite. Wally West was the most powerful. Nothing against Wally, it's just I grew up reading, stories about Barry Allen. Jay Garrick was the first Flash. For me, Barry was my first Flash. So, that other one, gosh, there's so many. I should have thought about this before I started rolling, but Final Crisis, Identity Crisis, and oh man, I don't quite remember the title of it, but there was an offshoot Superman story where Brainiac comes and pretty much takes Superman's dad away from him, and then we are left with a Superman who is vulnerable to his emotions, and that's what makes him such a compelling character, because you have this, guy who's not from Earth, who has all these incredible, vast, unquantifiable powers, and he's probably the most human of them all because he tries to be. He has to be the best of them, And another good story that I have read almost all the way through, based on the video game, is Injustice: Gods Among Us. We see Clark Kent, or Kal-El, become so fueled with rage that he breaks down and does something that nobody thought that he would do. And the story that I am referencing with Brainiac kinda has that same situation, but he doesn't go through with it. It's a dream. Like, everything that happened was true. He fights Brainiac, he loses his father, Jonathan, and it was just kind of a retelling of his loss of Jonathan. There's been so many. But this one in particular stood out to me because it was so emotional. But I will come back to that. I will have to try to remember the name of this story, so I can tell you guys it is a very, very good read. I know most people are kind of anti-Superman because, oh, what can be compelling about a guy who can, not die from anything or have untold strength and blah blah blah, but being that powerful and trying to humanize yourself, I think that gives more of like a psychological sense to a character. He's deeper than a lot of people give him credit for, and I should know because I've read a lot of his stories. I've got nothing against Superman. I think he's a very good character. He is the #1 superhero for a reason, folks. But with that being said, we are going to bring this video to a close. Once again, if you're interested, pick up a copy of Identity Crisis. It is a very good read. And with that, that is my first episode of Nerd Corner, folks. If you enjoyed this content, please give me a like, give me a thumbs up, and hopefully you guys subscribe. If you want more of this kind of stuff, let me know down in the comments, and we will see you guys in the next video. Goodbye. And I still want to cook. Ugh.